Have you ever lay awake at night with a mind that refused to be quiet, turning the same thought over and over in your hands until the hours disappeared and the morning arrived without a single moment of real rest? Have you ever felt that your own mind was your heaviest burden, not because the world around you was dangerous, but because the world inside your head never once gave you a genuine and lasting moment of peace? If yes, then this story is for you. Once upon a time, in a quiet village surrounded by tall pine trees and a wide and glassy lake that reflected the sky so perfectly on still mornings that you could not tell where the water ended and the heavens began, there lived a young man named Noah, a tailor by trade who stitched beautiful things with careful hands, but whose mind was never, even for a single hour, truly still. Noah was kind and thoughtful in every way, the kind of man who prepared for every conversation before having it, who lay awake imagining the outcome of every choice before making it, and who spent more time living inside the future and the past than he ever spent living inside the present moment that was actually his to inhabit and enjoy. He worried about things that had already happened and could no longer be changed. He worried about things that had not yet happened and might never arrive. And in the narrow and exhausting space between those two kinds of worry, he moved through his days, like a man carrying an invisible and growing weight that nobody else could see, but that he felt pressing down on him from the moment he opened his eyes in the morning. The people around him noticed that he seemed tired in a way that sleep could not fix, that his eyes carried a distant and preoccupied look even in the middle of a warm and friendly conversation, and that he smiled less with each passing season, not because life had treated him badly, but because his mind had quietly made a prison out of every good moment by immediately filling it with a new and carefully constructed fear. One gray and heavy evening, after spending an entire restless night worrying about a decision he had already made and could no longer change, Noah walked alone to the edge of the lake and sat on the cold grass with his knees pulled to his chest, staring at the water and feeling a hollow and desperate exhaustion that went far deeper than anything he could find words for. He watched the surface of the lake for a long time, and it was perfectly still, reflecting every cloud and every branch above it with a flawless and almost painful clarity, and something about that stillness made the noise inside his own head feel louder and more unbearable by contrast than it had ever felt before. An old gardener named Felix was sitting nearby, tending a small fire with slow and patient hands, and after a long silence he looked over at Noah with unhurried eyes, and said in a voice as calm as the water itself, "You have been staring at that lake for a long time, and it looks like the lake is carrying a great deal more peace than whatever is living behind your eyes right now." Noah let out a long and tired breath and told Felix everything: the sleepless nights, the endless replaying, the fear of every possible outcome, the crushing exhaustion of living not in the present moment, but in 100 imagined futures and regretted pasts all at the same time. And Felix listened without rushing him, his hands still moving slowly and patiently over the small fire. When Noah finished, Felix picked up a stone from the ground beside him and threw it gently into the center of the lake, and both men watched in complete silence as the ripples spread outward across the previously still and perfect surface in widening and overlapping circles. "What do you see now?" Felix asked quietly, his eyes still resting on the water. "The reflection is broken," Noah said, watching the ripples disturb the image of the clouds above. "Yes," Felix said with a slow nod. "And tell me honestly, does throwing more stones into the water fix the broken reflection, or does it make it worse? Because that is exactly what your mind does every single time you add one more anxious thought to a moment that is already disturbed. You throw another stone, and another, and then you wonder with genuine confusion why you cannot see clearly or think straight." He turned and looked at Noah with the steady and patient gaze of someone who had earned every word he was about to say. "The lake does not fight the ripples," he continued. "It does not demand that they stop or try to flatten them by force. It simply receives them, allows them to move outward naturally at their own pace, and then returns to its own stillness without any effort at all. And your mind already knows how to do exactly the same thing it has always known. It is simply waiting for you to stop throwing more stones into the water before the last ones have finished moving." Noah looked at the lake and felt something shift inside him very quietly, the way a room changes the moment someone opens a window and lets the outside air move through it for the first time in a long while. He began that same week to practice what those words had planted in him, and the practice was not complicated or dramatic. Whenever an anxious thought arrived, and he felt the familiar pull to chase it and build on it and turn it into a tower of worry. He simply noticed it the way you notice a cloud passing slowly overhead, acknowledged its presence without grabbing it, and let it continue moving past him the way clouds always do when you stop trying to hold them in place. It was not easy in the beginning, and there were nights when the stones still fell into the water. But slowly, and with a patience he had never before shown, toward himself, the surface of his mind began to settle, not into a perfect and permanent silence, but into a livable and genuine calm that felt more like freedom than anything he had experienced in years. So, my friend, if your mind has been throwing stones the way Noah's once did, filling every quiet moment with a new wave of worry before the last one has even finished moving across the water, then carry this one truth with you from today. You do not cure overthinking by thinking harder or longer or more carefully about it. You cure it by learning to let thoughts arrive and pass without turning every single one of them into a story that you must finish before you can rest. Because peace is not the absence of thought. It is simply the quiet wisdom to know which thoughts deserve your full attention and which ones are just stones falling into water that was always meant to be stilled. Let the ripples pass, and trust that the lake always finds its way back to calm. If this story touched your heart, subscribe to Tales with English, where every story helps you learn English and learn life.